Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're tackling a huge question, one that gets to the very heart of how our world works. In an age of global markets and a borderless internet, is the nation-state becoming obsolete? We're going to dig into the changing role of the state.
All right, let's just dive right in, shall we? Is the nation-state a thing of the past? I mean, it's a massive debate, and you can see why. Think about it. Global money flowing everywhere. The internet connecting everyone. All these huge international organizations. It really feels like the whole idea of a sovereign country is being squeezed from all sides.
And get this, the language people are using to talk about this is, well, it's pretty startling. Just look at some of these terms from the source analysis, especially when talking about the developing world. Vampire state, predator state, collapsed state. Wow, this isn't just some dry academic jargon. It's a sign of a really deep crisis in what it even means to be a country today.
Okay, so before we can even talk about whether the state is dying, we kind of have to understand what it looked like at its peak. So let's rewind a bit back to the state in its absolute prime, the age of sovereignty.
For centuries, the world basically ran on this one big idea, the Westphalian model. And the core concept was super simple. The world is just a collection of sovereign states, and there's no authority higher than them. The king on his map, he was the ultimate power. The nation-state was the undisputed kingpin. And what did that actually look like? Well, the rules were pretty clear. States were sovereign, they made their own laws, they enforced their own laws. And here's the kicker. If you had a dispute with another country, you often just settled it with force. International law wasn't about some grand vision of cooperation. It was just about setting the bare minimum rules so countries didn't wipe each other off the map. Now, a world where might makes right can't last forever, can it? I mean, it led us straight into two absolutely devastating world wars. And out of that unbelievable chaos, a whole new model was born, built on a kind of historic peace treaty within nations, the welfare state. And at the absolute heart of this welfare state was this incredible pact. And this quote sums it up perfectly. The deal was this. Workers would accept that capitalists had a right to own things and make a profit, but in return, the state promised them social benefits, a strong safety net, and job security. This created a really powerful interventionist state that was involved in everyone's lives. But like a lot of deals, this one had an expiration date, because a new force was coming onto the scene, one that would disrupt, well, pretty much everything, and that was globalization. So, you know that deal we just talked about? The one that brought all this social peace? Well, over time, the people with the capitals started looking at it differently. As the source points out, it started to be seen as a drag on their flexibility, a threat to their profits. And what's the logical response when a contract is holding you back? You tear it up. And that response had a name, neoliberalism. It was this really powerful ideology with one crystal clear goal: to restore the old ideal of the free market by systematically, well, rolling back the state. And listen, this wasn't just some vague philosophy. No, it was a step-by-step playbook. The plan was clear: stop the state from intervening, slash public spending, cut back welfare programs, sell off state-owned companies, and weaken the unions. Every single step was designed to take power away from the state and hand it back to the market. So all of this huge project to roll back the state, it kicked off the massive debate we're still stuck in today. Has globalization finally done it? Has it killed the nation-state? Now, the folks who say the state is over, they've got a pretty strong case, you have to admit. Money zips around the globe, so no single country can really control its economy. We're dealing with a world of NGOs, multinational corporations, and activist groups, not just countries. And in a world of digital networks, do physical borders even matter that much anymore? But hold on, it's not that simple, is it? Because when you look closer, the state is still doing some pretty essential stuff. I mean, who manages the borders to deal with terrorism or migration crises? The state. Who's ultimately on the hook for enforcing human rights? The state. So instead of just vanishing, states are taking on these vital new jobs as coordinators in a ridiculously complex world. And if you want proof that the tide is turning, look no further than this quote from Francis Fukuyama. Yeah, the same guy who famously wrote The End of History. After the events of 9/11, he completely changed his tune, realizing that many of the world's biggest problems, from terrorism to poverty, aren't caused by states being too strong, but by them being too weak. Okay, so if the state isn't dead, what is it? What's its new job? Well, the answer our source material gives us is that it's not disappearing, it's transforming. It has a whole new job description. And to really get this shift, the analysis uses these two fantastic German concepts. Think of it like this. The state used to be seen as a Gemeinschaft. That's like a family, an organic community built on deep, shared identity and solidarity. But now it's become much more of a Gesellschaft, which is more like a business, the pragmatic association you join to get specific things done. So its new number one job, to be what's called a competition state. Its main purpose now is to make sure its people and its economy can compete and win on the global stage. It's less of a top-down commander and more of a coordinator, a negotiator, working within this huge, messy global marketplace. And this really brings us to the core takeaway. The state isn't some static thing. As the theorist Bob Jessup puts it in this incredible quote, it's a social relation. It's the arena, the playing field, where all our political fights and strategies happen. In other words, it's not a rock, it's a river. It's constantly being shaped and reshaped by what we do. So the state isn't gone. It just has a totally new, really complex job description. And that leaves us with one final big question to chew on. As the state keeps changing, what new responsibilities does it need to take on to actually serve its people in this wild, globalized world we all live in?